for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
As a Scotsman and a public speaking coach, I feel like I've been waiting my entire life for this one chance to break down the Braveheart speech. If you're new to the channel, my name is Kyle Murtagh and I help people speak with more confidence and impact. And today what I'm going to do is break down the Braveheart speech and explain why it is so engaging and so powerful. And I'm also going to point out a few different techniques that you can use in your own presentations to make them just as moving. Before I get into the breakdown, please do subscribe to the channel because every week I'm bringing out new public speaking tips which you can use in your presentations. And by the way, if you don't subscribe, I'll just assume you're English. I'm only joking. Kind of. Okay, let's get into the opening of the speech.
Sons of Scotland, I am William Wallace.
William Wallace is 7 feet tall.
Yes, I've heard. Kills men by the hundred. And if he were here, he'd consume the English with fireballs from his eyes and bolts of lightning from his arse.
I want to point out how well Wallace deals with that heckler, because not only does he address the heckle, but then he wins over the crowd by saying that lightning bolts come from his arse, using humor. And you might need to use this as well. There might be someone who interrupts your presentation. Think about how potentially you could use humor to disarm that person and win the crowd back over.
I am William Wallace. And I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny.
Notice how that sentence was said. It was broken up with a variety of different pauses. Wallace didn't just say, I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. No, instead he said, I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. And by having those pauses, it allows the audience to take in the information more, and it gives each word in that sentence far more impact. You can do that too when you've got a long sentence in your presentation.
You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are.
That line is very important. And free men you are. Because what it does is it establishes the message of the presentation. And this is something you want to do as well. You want to have your message, or at least an idea of what your message will be, early in your presentation and speech. Because that way when you reinforce it with the call to action at the end, freedom, in this case, it makes it so much more impactful because now there is a connection between the opening and the ending.
What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight? Against that? No!
So Willie Wallace jumped the gun a little bit there. He asked them, will you fight? And they said, no. And the reason they said that was because he had not convinced them why they should fight. And this is something you should watch out for as well. Be careful not to ask your audience to do something before giving them the argument of why they should do it. If people don't have a why, if they don't have a compelling reason to do something, they're less likely to take action.
Against that? No! We will run! And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while.
This is masterful how Wallace deals with this heckle. First, he acknowledges it by saying, yeah, you'll live. But then he redirects it by saying, at least for a while. And that pause gives the army time to think about how today will be fine if they don't fight, but the days that follow won't be when the English take over. And so Wallace has pointed out a flaw in their argument. And this is what you can do too if you do get a heckler in your presentation. First, acknowledge what they've said, but then redirect their attention to a flaw, to a chink in the armor of their argument.
And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Yes, let's go. There are so many things about that final sequence that makes it so motivational. I want to point out 3 specific techniques. Number 1, it plays on the emotion of regret. When Wallace talks about how they'll be lying on their deathbed one day, it makes them think about whether they will regret not fighting in this moment, whether they will regret giving up their freedom. Number 2, the sentence is very long. There's a lot of different words in it. And what that does is it allows Wallace time to build up the pace, build up the momentum, like I'm doing now with my delivery, until we almost come to a crescendo. And at that point, number 3 comes into play. He redirects the focus onto the enemy by saying,
And tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
And the combination of those 3 things, number 1, playing on regret, number 2, having that long sentence to build up a momentum, and number 3, reminding them of their enemy, makes the army and us watching at home want to run through a brick wall for Wallace to, of course, protect our freedom! I hope you enjoyed this breakdown and it gave you some ideas for your own motivational or inspirational speeches and presentations. If there's another movie speech that you would like me to break down, put it in the comments and I will make a video on that speech. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep improving your public speaking skills, and I will see you in the next video. Freedom!